Another thing we can do with interfaces is we can have one interface extend another. So I'm gonna scroll down and go down here. And let's say I have an interface, and I'm gonna scroll up some more. And let's say this interface, I'm gonna call it patient, for example. And this patient interface is gonna have to have interface, and say we need to have a name, which is gonna be a string. Right now, let's say I have another interface, so I'm gonna say interface, and I'm gonna name it client, and I can have this interface have, say, rating, for example, and let's say this is gonna be a number, right? So we have two interfaces. We have one that is patient, and then we have another one that is client. And now let's say I'm gonna have a class, and let's say this class is gonna be tenant, for example. Now I can have this class implement the client, right? So I'm gonna inherit everything from the client. So I can say rating that I'm obligated to have, which is supposed to be a number, right? And I can pass that in a constructor. So I can say constructor, I'm gonna take a rating, which is gonna be a number. And inside of this constructor, I'm just gonna say this dot rating equals rating, right? So I'm obligated to have this rating, and I'm just setting it inside of the class like this for whenever an instance is created. Another thing I can do, which is very flexible, is let's say I wanted to have this tenant to have the name as well. So I can also implement this interface. So I can come here and say patient. So now I'm obligated to have this name, and I can do the same thing again. So I can do name, which is gonna be a string, and I can come down here and take the name in, and then do the same thing that I did here. So this dot name equals name. So I can do that, and you can see that works as well. So now what I can do is I can make the client interface or the patient interface extend the client or one another. It doesn't really matter. So here what I can do is I can say extend patient. Since I'm implementing this client, I don't have to implement the patient anymore. I can just remove it, because when the client interface extends the patient interface, it also inherits the name property, which is why if I remove this here, then it's going to complain, because it's almost like this client has this name inside of it because we're extending it. So I'm going to undo this. And also another thing is you can extend multiple different interfaces. So I can say, another one, another one. So I can have another one and another one. I can extend as many interfaces as I want as long as I have them. So that's another thing you can do, which you can't do in classes and inheritance when you have like an abstract class or you're inheriting from another class. You can only extend another class with a class. But with interfaces, you can extend multiple different interfaces. And with classes, you can also implement different interfaces. So as an example, I can come back here and say patient, and that should also work just fine. And I think we have another interface up here. So I can say computer. Obviously, this example is not making sense, but I'm just showing you that with implements for interfaces, you can have them as many times as you want. And I can say computer. Now it's going to complain that I need to have, the name, the RAM, the size, and the connect. But you can see that, it's not giving me an error here. And if I hover over it, you just say that I'm incorrectly implementing it. So I'll use the quick fix, then X, and paste this here. And we would have to pass those in the constructor as well, like this, and just like that, and then set them again, RAM equals size, and you can see that works just fine. So this class implements 3 interfaces, and you can keep going and going and going. I don't know if it ever gonna give you an error, like if you implement 1,000, but obviously that's not a realistic thing to think about. But as you can see here with interfaces, you can implement them as many as you want. And with interface itself, you can extend any other interface. You can extend as many as you want. So very, very flexible. And I'm just gonna remove the computer here and remove these 2 and get rid of these and get rid of these 2. So make this a little bit cleaner, but at least you understand what I'm trying to do here. So with interfaces, you can extend other interfaces, so as many other interfaces as you want. And with classes, you can implement as many interfaces as you want. Oh, by the way, I don't need this patient here because the client is extending the patient interface. So with this, you can have very, very nice and elegant code whenever you're using TypeScript as your programming language.